What are you talking about, you at all you need to know is I'm starting the show with the fucking best AD carry. My apologies. The best player in the LEC in the last split. So welcome to Upset. Hello.
In the regular season, I might add, but thank you.
Listen, you're on Fnatic. That goes without saying, mate.
Oh, yeah, of course.
I didn't say champion of the LEC, so I think, I feel like that was the awkward elephant in the room I wasn't addressing there, mate. Let's just start there, though, Upset. You brought it up. So first things first, before we get to MSI, you've obviously had a career where you've sort of been close many times, or people would say you were one of the best players or one of the best ADCs. But in the past, there always was someone else. Could have been Hansama, could have been, the joke is recently, could have been Kalist, could have been Reckless, the dreaded Reckless, could have been all sorts of people, depending on what year we're talking about. What does it actually, what was it like to become, before the play, what was it like to be the MVP of the split? Do you ever think this would happen for you? Is it significant to you? Where's your head at in that sense?
Definitely really significant, especially I think as an AD carry, it's not many have been crowned with this award. I think it was only me, Forgiven, and Reckless, so it's obviously very great company. It doesn't make up for not having the team trophy, obviously, in any way, but it's something I'm really happy and proud of, and at least it's makes the bitter end a little bit more sweet, let's say. Looking back at the split, at least I feel like on an individual level, I've shown something.
Okay. Did you actually have, listen, don't bullshit me just because you like it. Did you actually have him as MVP, Yamato?
Yeah. I had Upset as MVP. I thought it was clear. Because even like in the games that you guys, like your losses were kind of bullshit. It's like you had the first series against SK, and then it's like the end game versus Koi. I think it's like it was very, very narrow in terms of you guys like being first place or not in the end, because you did beat Casey, right? And I think also another detail that was important in my mind was it's like on Casey, it seemed like the effort was kind of more widespread, but I think that it was very clear like that Upset was above and beyond on Fnatic that was so close to being first. So for me, I always,
Yeah,
I have biases everywhere because I know people everywhere, but Upset is one of my favorite homies. So still,
I actually just thought the All Pro. No. Listen, I could actually complain about the jungle position, but we'll leave that for now. I just look KC top side of the map. You've nailed it. Fnatic bot lane. Now, if only that was a team, but that's for another day. That's for me in the opium den with my pipe dreams of what could be. Also, in that game against SK, listen. Upset doesn't play fucking mid lane. He wasn't the one diving that tower. You go back and watch some of those games. You'll see what happened. It wasn't me. So anyway, let's get into the actual stuff. So obviously people are wondering, how is LEC going to do at MSI? Now, I will point out, as I referenced in the beginning part, I actually also, even for our regions like LEC and LTA, I actually way prefer MSI because you get 2 best of 5s against potentially like Asian competition. You get to actually play it, whereas like people like FlyQuest get like 1 BO5 and then they have to be like, but I almost won it. It's like you actually get like a proper sample size. You get to really test yourself against these people. So the obvious thing people want to know, admittedly Upset said he mainly watches LCK and obviously he played in LEC and watched the matches there. So we're not going to like try and shadowbox too much the LPL. He watched the final, and obviously LTA, I don't even know who the fuck knows if anyone watches that. Mathematically, ES charts would show you, I can objectively prove nobody watches that. So I'd have to have one of them in here at this point in time. I don't even know if some of them watch it, mate. I feel like there's players in those games fucking turn off the monitor sometimes. Who knows? So the question obviously people want to know is, how do you, I'll just roast the shell that. Since I don't have any guests, fuck your region. It's the LCS still and it's trash. Anyway, bring someone on the show for you. So the question is, if we want a shadow box, since you watched the LCK, look, it was up and down there. Obviously people thought maybe Hannibal Life would be here. Instead it is T1 after all, and GenG is obviously the dominant team. How do you imagine, just give us your overview, before we get into the specifics of each team, what is your sense of how LEC, MKOI and G2, we're assuming everyone makes it through the play-ins, how would you think they can match up against the LCK teams?
I think it's looking pretty grim for EU, honestly. I think EU has been pretty competitive in the top 4, like over both of the splits, but I'm not sure if that's like a really good thing or not. Like you could say the teams are maybe pushing each other, but maybe in the end it would be better if all the talent, like all the very, very best player would be condensed into one team instead to really have a shot to beat them more.
Sure.
But yeah, so it's hard to say. I would say Korea is obviously heavily favored. It was very surprising that T1 made it. It looked like after Hanwha got reverse swept they didn't play like themselves when they played against T1. And also T1 didn't look like they played like themselves, honestly, because they were actually really, really in great form again, which they seem to be able to switch on sometimes. Not not often, but when they do, it's pretty scary. So I would definitely think the Korean teams are a lot stronger right now. Yeah.
Okay. What is your sense of Yamato? How are you like matching it up?
I've said this since like even before the season started. I thought if anything, maybe you guys, because you guys brought over like obviously Fnatic signed you and Mickey. I thought you guys could be like super dangerous, because I do think like in terms of G2's past bids, like G2 has been the team out of the West when you can maybe consider Flag was there too, but considering like their path at Worlds as an example, or their MSI, I always thought like G2 having like BB and Caps and Mickey performing as good as they are, I think it just meant so much in terms of them being competitive. Because like that series that went to 5 games, I have never seen Keria Gumiushi get so blasted by a Poppy, you know? like that was a jinx with like 3-4k gold lead really early on in the game. And I think people really underestimate how good Mickey was at these internationals. And since G2 removed themselves from that, I never expected the LEC to be like competitive, especially because like the off seasons the off season in Korea was probably like the most brutal one.
Sure.
If you think about MSI, it's like sure T1 downgrade on paper, right? But it's like considering they had Hanwha Life, T1, GenG, the teams coming out of there are way more sharper in terms of like the talent and the concentrated talent. Somehow like GenG, even though Ruler might not be performing like super good now, I will always think Ruler at the end of the season playing a final best of 5 that is going to just be like way more dangerous due to his pedigree and experience. So on my end, I don't think LEC has anything to offer. I really don't think so.
Okay. You know what? I do want to get into the teams, but fuck it, we'll do it now. I'll actually get spicy. It's not because they actually won the league, but believe it or not, of the 2 teams, everyone else is going to say G2 because they've got Carps, they've got all these established players that have played international, like you say. I actually think of the 2, I would take MKOI as the one with the better chance to upset. Like, by the way, that's actually why low-key, I'm glad T1 made it. I actually want to see that fucking game, if it can happen. I want to see MKOI play T1, because people will laugh like, oh, yeah, like, what are you talking about, mate? Like, first of all, I just saw Jojo like fucking beat Caps. And then secondly, like that team actually plays together. And look, if you don't have a Mickey X, that basically, Yamato doesn't just mean specifically Mickey. He means like a player who plays so good from our region that like Koreans respect him and he can do. Man, I think Eloya is on that level. I think he's shown. I think him and Inspired were actually sending 2 banger junglers to this tournament who actually can do stuff. Like, that's not the style of play Order plays. Order's like the crazy, like fucking gank guy who plays a faker. Goes, like, I want to see that game. I want to see if Super, are you ready, Yamato, can play it super well. See how I did that there? Your catchphrase, motherfucker. I'm talking like you now. That's right.
I say that? Is that my tick?
You said super about every single thing that is good ever in the entire thing, and his name is Super.
I have never noticed. I'm gonna lie.
Are you for real? All right, don't worry about it. Just get ChatGPT.
You took some of the beating early on. At least there's someone to share with me. You know, this is what he does to me all the time. He just points out my ticks and all that jazz.
Yeah. Listen, don't get self-conscious or anything. Just keep talking. It's all good. So anyway, that's the angle I want to see. And also, I think if you look at it in a weird way, the fact that you look at those names, if you were something like T1, you wouldn't be like, holy fuck, look at these names on MCOT. Merwin, what? But that's actually the underrated thing about their team. They're not actually a crazy team on paper, but they play way better than the names do in the actual game, though. And you see some of the games they did play in these playoffs. They had some fucking masterful games. I always tell people against KC, I think they could have won like almost every single game they played in those 2 BO5s. Like, that's like mad underrated. Like, they actually, if anything, had sort of a glow up in the playoffs. So I want to see if you put them in as like a pure underdog. Sometimes I do think the Asian teams just look past like anyone who's not got Caps or fucking Mickey X, or if it's not just Fnatic. So I think they respect the names. They don't necessarily respect your game as like an up and coming player. Also, people like Alvaro, bro, is anyone from Asia actually ready for people like that to actually be good? I don't know if they think these are also or whatever. So what do you think of the MKOI angle? Let's start drilling into some of these teams. What do you think of MKOI here, mate?
I mean, like you say, they play better than the sum of their parts, you could say. I think in general, I think I'm just very, very impressed by Eloya. It's now the 3rd time he has kind of proven that he can make a team that's maybe not the best on paper into a championship winning team. And I think that's exactly what you want from your jungle, somebody that leads the game, somebody that shapes the team in his vision, let's say. And I think 2021, and people maybe forget, but 2023, he also let's say, stole another split from G2, I would say, again in spring with like the Niski and was it Chasey?
Lele, Kazi,
Hele,
Chasey,
Kazi, yeah. With that roster, which obviously compared to the G2 one was also more of an underdog. I think they have this tendency to get like into a really clear way of how they want to play, and I think he leads it, and then they can perform better than like what you would expect. But at the same time, that also can be a big problem when you then play in an international level, because the individual players might not be as good, but the way they play as a team is really good. But then when you play against teams that play really well as a team, but also the individual players are like all really the best in the world, right? Like you look at a GenG, even a T1 to some degree. I think some players in the roles are still the best in the world, like Carrier at least, and Owner can also be very, very good. I think then often it falls short, and that's also what you have seen. Like when Koi went to internationals, I think Eloya raises the floor so high that they can manage to qualify and even win the league. But then when you play against the Asian teams, then you need like not just a really consistent good way of playing. You also need the X factor, because a Jovi might just turn up to a team fight and shuffle 5 people, or like Ruler might have an insane game. So then you really need this X factor that old G2 had, maybe with Caps, especially, is obviously the most known player for that in our region, and will probably always be. And I don't see Koi having that, even though they are a strong team and have these good fundamentals, like you said.
There's a reason I didn't bother comparing them to GenG there, you'll notice. I stuck mainly with Distant T2, and I got all the copium and hope. There's a reason I didn't even bring the GenG thing in, because spoiler, if people don't know, like, for example, when I do betting, you can do, like, before the tournament, who's going to win the tournament outright. And normally I always tell people, oh, don't ever bet on the favourite, because obviously the odds of that are incredibly low. Like, what if they don't win? Like, all the other teams can win. So what you normally do if you're going to do that bet, like bet on the pre-tournament, is you try and pick, like, a second or third team that has, like, good odds, that, you know, maybe have, like, 5-1 odds or so. For this one, it's one of the only times ever I just picked GenG, mate. It's just like, it's a double Olympio 5 tournament. Like, they probably are going to win it. Like, if you see how they play in Korea, like, the joke is the closest team to beating them isn't at the tournament. They're fucking at home with Zeus watching online going, oh, fuck, has a guy posted another thread about that transfer? Fucking hell. Because for some reason I've noticed to T1, it's like, whether they win or lose, Yamato, they have like 2 fucking buttons they press, and it either like releases some like drama about like Joe Marsh, or it releases some shit about that agency, and it's like, oh, we won the game, quick, put away the Joe Marsh one. The Zeus drama, and then the dogs go out that way and everyone goes fucking crazy on that shit. So it's all good. T1 is here. And always, you have to remember as well, it doesn't matter what level T1's in. You know their fans, Yamato. It's like, yeah, but you don't know Faker is built different. He is just chilling in regular season. He doesn't care about LCK. He is just win. Spoiler, he hasn't done it at MSI for 1 billion fucking years, by the way. He literally won MSI 8 years ago, if anyone doesn't know. Just saying. Anyway, right, what about the other team then? You should give me your thoughts. What do you think of MKoi? And if you can, because we're going to, spoiler, I should have prepped you on this, Yamato. Since we are going to talk to all these different guests, it is basically going to be a variation of the same conversation over and over and over again. So get on your toes, mate, because you can't make the same point again and again and again and again. You know, sometimes Thorin has some really out there hot takes. Motherfucker, I know how to keep it entertaining. You can't just every week be like, I think this player is the best. You have to have some angle, you know, like, but what if this other player was in his spot? You have to have some shit like that. Right? You have to keep it interesting, keep it controversial. Basically. So the question is, if you were to contrast, you can do it with GenG too if you want. I just feel it's futile. If we're going to do MKoi against the Asian teams, if you want, by the way, we can briefly touch on LPL too. How are they going to match up at this tournament?
I think the main angle for me, because I'm in full agreement with what you said, Elias, because I do think like the angle of teamwork, how they play together, and like having, you know, like an overarching idea of how they want to pursue the game. I thought always their mid to late game was always like very inconsistent, and I felt like teams could like wait them out, but now they kind of actually like set up for the Drake, you know, set up for the Nash. They don't like throw games like 12k gold lead. I always bring this up. It's like when you were playing with Kana, that one split you guys played, and it was so close that Kana would just have no career in the LEC if you guys like didn't qualify to playoffs, because fucking there was that game against Koi where they like threw 12k gold lead. Yeah. You're playing Jinx. Sure, yeah. And I'm like, oh, bro, the butterfly effect of that one throw is kind of mental. But they have kind of tied that up. I think the main angle I would go with is like teams that have won their leagues technically outside of GenG. In terms of like prep work and how like sold I am on drafts and how they, let's say, structure their best of fives, because I think that's a really, really big deal. It's like we have best of 5, of course, fearless. And double elimination. And I think that matters a great deal because I think in terms of strategic victories, like a team like AL, I think Koi also winning. I think a big part of them just winning was them figuring out how they wanted to branch out in a series. It's like what sacrifices you make, what you give up, and how you move into the series. And I think if there's an angle there, I do think Koi's prep work in playoffs, figuring out how to make sure that Alvaro and Eloya are consistently effective, because I thought that would be like their biggest flaw, is that they would run out of champions to pair together with jungle and super that would make sense. And there was like that one game I remember that they lost against KC. It was the 4th game where they played like Lucian, Karma, bot, and I was like, oh, are they just out of gas here? And then Casey came in with like the Pyke Wukong draft in the game 5 that they in the end lost against, of course, the Brom of Alvaro. So I think on the prep side, I think Koi can definitely bring something that is unique and they can branch out. But it comes back to the same thing. It's like that only really begins to matter when you get to game 4 and 5. In some cases, and if you can't get your foot through the door against some of the Asian teams, because I think like beating Bilibili, I had this conversation with Kairi earlier too. It's like beating a team like Bilibili. It's like strategically they are not sharp. They take fights. They play every Drake. They're not looking for some cohesive idea. The drafts are kind of all over the place. It was like game 5 against AL that they played. We had like Tristana, Milio, Akali, and it's like it can work because it's Bilibili, but if you don't allow them to just win fights over you, which is, I say allow, but is you need to be able to play the game good, then you're not going to, all these details that we can break down about the drafts and all the macro, it just goes out the door. I do think these 2 teams, like the 4 teams in particular, are going to be very, very tough to like create an upset victory against. But I do think from where I'm standing, like looking at G2, I do think Koi has enough ideas in the early game to actually put them in potentially winning positions. Because I feel like that's always the main thing. It's like if you're going to cause an upset win, is usually it's like you have some crazy draft idea that just works because the enemy doesn't know how to deal with it, or you have a big enough early game lead that you kind of take the game to a point where 4-5k go the lead, maybe you can win the fights then. And I do think that their early games are like dynamic enough to maybe break some of the lane phases, because I think most junglers at this tournament, like the best ones, it's like level 1, 2, 3, they find like some angles to break the game. They level 2 gank bot, they level 2 invade after chickens. They are very, very creative like that. And I think Eloya and Alvaro can cook some shit up.
What we're going to do is, as I said, we're not going to talk much about LPL because, I mean, you watched the final, so I don't want to make it like he says some. I've done this in the past where it's like, what do you think about this? And then someone gives like a strong opinion, and it's like they only watched that match, and maybe earlier on that guy played that fucking champion. Famously, Frostgore wrecked herself for this one, where she said Fnatic like couldn't play Leona or something when it was like Yellow Star's fucking signature pick or whatever. So I'm not going to do that. So we're going to mainly talk about LCK and LEC. So I'll just say this: watch how this works, Yamato, and you'll see how the formula goes. Okay. So on this part of the show, I'll say stuff which it's all going to be congruent. It's just, you'll see how I sort of shift the dial on how much of it. So when I talk about the LPL versus MKOI, here's the copium. So Billy, they have all those scary players. I actually think literally Koi's jungler is better than BLG's jungler. Like, you can actually win through that aspect of the game. Think how rare you ever get that as a fucking Western team going against like a top Asian team. And then against anyone's legend, I will say that on paper looks like you're checkmated. But mate, my boy Tarzan is a fucking giga choker, isn't he? He's fucking, he's a hapless, like fucking worker on the Death Star versus Darth Vader, isn't he? Fucking that hasn't worked out yet. And then secondly, they have loads of rookies. No one knows how some of those people are going to do in MSI. They haven't been to this place. They were watching it on stream like the rest of us. So, but the reason I say watch what I do here is because later on when we have the LPL guy on, I'll basically talk about how the LPL team will shit all over all these teams, to crush them all, including BLG. And there's actually no world where Merwin and Giorgio are beating Bin and Knight. But you know what? That's how it works. See, narratives, sometimes they overlap slightly. Sometimes they dodge each other like fucking Tron bikes. That's just how it be. So let's get back to it, right? What about the other team, though, Upset? Everyone wants to know about G2, because actually, you know what I said earlier about how T1 fans go, oh, Faker, and that was just like, that wasn't their real power level. They were like, just chilling in regular season, and then they wait till like the playoffs. People tried to write that narrative twice about G2 this year. Both times in the upper bracket, the story was supposed to be they were just the best team all along. But they just, either they were like, fucking experimenting in the regular season, or, they didn't want to give away anything, or, maybe people like Captain just played a million years, so you don't power up until the big game Gamescom, but then they didn't win any of the splits. So as someone on the inside, it was implied Fnatic's one of the teams, I think even if people look up the document, did well against G2 in the scrims, etc. What do you actually think, what is the real G2? How much of it is it what happened in the playoffs? Is some of that a globe? How much of it, were there times in the regular split where they looked shady to you? What do you think of G2?
Well, so in scrims, I think over both splits, it was pretty like 50-50 overall the win rate. I think I would say the biggest things they lost this year have been the creativity from the support, but also to some degree from the jungle. I think Yike is a much more dynamic player than Skewmont. And I think Skewmont to some degree is, you could say, more consistent, but when I see Yike play even now, he goes for a lot of like ganks from the other side, or maybe it's also from scrims, maybe it's because we have Humanoid and he dies level 3 a lot, but he's finding all the angles to gank. He's doing like creative stuff, but especially Mickey is like probably the second biggest playmaker in like the EU history, with like Hilly in support, right? I mean, top 2, definitely. So Mickey in his prime like brings something that like nearly no one else can bring from this region, and they don't have that anymore. And then this team also doesn't really have the caps that was like maybe last year split pushing with Tristana, or Zia playing these side lane champs that gives them like a alternate win condition that no other team is really looking to play like that, like this extreme side lane playstyle with a lot of pressure. So I think these are the things that G2 kind of lost this year, which are the things that I think are most important in the international setting. Obviously, they still have caps, but this team is not like looking to put caps always in these positions. Maybe it's also because of Fearless, so it's harder to have a style like that because there's only a few champs that can really pressure side lane like that and can scale and are strong in lane and are mobile to escape situations and can outplay, like Justana Azir from the past. So obviously, I think they're going to have a harder time because, like Yamato mentioned, you kind of need to create some early advantages because it's very hard to outmatch a team just straight up in team fights in an even situation. The best Asian teams have usually a lot more reps than that, and they're usually just stronger at executing fights, I would say. So I would be a bit worried as well. The other thing, the G2 before, I think, like obviously the very in the past one was 2018, 2019. I mean 2019 and 2020, but also the one from the last 2 years. They had a little bit more of the clutch thing going on, I would say. They did often were the team that lost in the upper bracket, but then came back through the lower bracket and then clutched the final and looked dominant. Yes. Kind of what has been happening to them now, like the reverse, where they look actually good in the upper bracket, and then they managed to lose the final quite badly. So obviously that's also something that is something to be concerned about when you go into a high pressure situation like MSI. So I would say it's looking a little bit grim for them, but also it's understandable, right? Their jungle is his first year playing competitively.
Yeah, of course, rookie.
So I'm not too concerned about him like in the long run, but for this tournament with the lack of creativity, and I think usually they beat you pretty fair and square, like either they have like advantages going, like let's say in jungle or on the lane, and then they can just play through that like in a straightforward way, and then they manage to beat you. I don't think they're like the team that necessarily finds the crazy teamfight angles from behind and outplays you, or has this crazy draft idea that is going to win them the game, like maybe more in the past. So I think they're like a pretty straightforward team, which is not great when you play against opposition that is just stronger on paper. I don't really see a great angle right now, unless they really change their playstyle as a team and somehow manage to enable Caps again to be the focal point of the team. So that's kind of my take on G2. Yeah.
Go on then, Yamato. Give me yours.
I think if anything, just to add this, like if I would like offer like a copium take is which is going to require a lot of effort because I'm going to ask people to forget about the finals because the best of fives they played leading up to the finals, I like, especially Caps in those two best of fives that like they beat you guys. I think Caps like did a lot of legwork, like that Annie game where like caught Gwen on side and it was like
I think we kind of beat ourselves up like
definitely
most games.
Oh, listen, you threw the alley-oop, but he did the 360 windmill into the basket.
But let's say the Koi series, like the main thing that I thought was lacking, right, is because I have a very similar take to you. Like I feel like this team is not about Caps at all. It's like You have a jungler that plays well with leads, but if he doesn't have a lead, I think that he's just non-existent. He's not there. I think he's very almost like solo queue pilled, where it's like either he drives the game completely because he's ahead, like that one Zinzao game he played against you guys, or like in winter when he played like Pantheon, he got ahead and then he just took over the game. But then it's like, oh, he gets invaded. There's a split map, and then it's like I didn't see Scumond because it just looks like the way he plays. He presses tab and sees enemy CS on jungle being ahead, and he's like, I'm gonna catch up somehow, and he's just like racing against somebody that is like in a car or some shit instead of trying to do something dynamic. And I think that the bot lane is the same way. I feel like if this bot lane doesn't have initiative, doesn't have push, I don't think that they are good at all at knowing how to be like impactful in the game. I think like that game you guys played, the Kalista Tarek that you guys by some miracle lost. I hate to tear up old wounds, but even, like that game, I think was absolutely like crazy. That G2 as a top 4 team in the league even got in that position. Like you guys were 2v2 diving them and burning their sums and killing them between 2 turrets was even crazy to think about.
I would be surprised if GenG would lose that game. If they get a lead like that.
Yes. So back to my initial point, the point of Copium is that those 2 best of 5, especially the one against Koi, I did see Labrov play a more dynamic game. I saw BB and Caps actually work together. There was like the one game they played Camille, and I think that in the same game Caps played Rise, and they were pushing side, collapsing into one side, and they actually had like some momentum going in the game. But both finals that they played were so goddamn awful from super jungle position that they didn't give their solo laners anything to play with. I like usually if Caps is underperforming, I think it always signifies something else. And I think that when he operates with very limited information, he's going to take a lot of risks and he's going to look, silly doing so. Sure, that one play on Orianna when he like melee walks into Leona, I don't know if he just believed in Trash Lantern super hard or he just melee walked into Leona. Sure, you can criticize him for that, but I think like his overarching body of work always, I gotta remember it's like 2021 ups when we beat them, when we beat them and kicked them out of the Worlds run. I always bring this up on stream because it's just fun. It's just fun because everyone said we wouldn't be able to do it. Like even then, you could see Caps, his vision of that series was like he was just picking Orianna every game. He was just picking Orianna every game, playing in isolation, like not playing something that showcases that he actually believes that he's going to have, support from his jungle and support at the time. And in that series, like even though like Caps wasn't that state of mind, it's like I think it showcases something entirely different because I don't think that team was built around Caps either in terms of how they played, and I think that was like the biggest flaw in the end because they tried to cater to different players. And I think coming to this MSI, I also think that the lights are too bright. I think these finals that they played were way too bad. But I do think that G2 had like sprinkles of moments where they actually did good things. When Jungle and Super were on the same screen, they actually set up things for Caps. There were moments when that was good, but I don't see how that switch up is going to happen now towards MSI because in the end, like the pressure is going to be even heavier. I look at Labrov as a player always, if I just isolate the final best of 5 he played in any season that he played, it always looks kind of grim and bad. I remember the best of 5 we played against him, like when we went to 5 games, like he was struggling, Crowny was struggling, that was a rough one. You were Goomba stomping on Tristana, was a good time. I remember like when they lost the finals against Mad Lions, Labrov was also like, Hilly was just like drifting, he was just completely freestyling in that series. I remember like talking to Hilly between game 0 and 2, like they are 0-2 down. He's like, Hilly is like, they are not good. we are gonna win this. I was like, all right, I've never seen someone be so confident being 0-2 down, and then they just reverse swept them. And then now here as well on the G2. So I remember also Labrov at the World Championship, the only international event he was. I didn't think he was too impressive that year either. And I think that's a very, very big problem. Like going from Mickey, who plays even better at internationals, to Labrov, I think is just going to be, nightmare fuel. I think at the end of the year, G2 is going to regret this decision so fucking much because I think they dropped Nicky twice. Are we gonna have some reunion in a couple of years again, or is Upsa gonna hold on to him, or maybe even join G2? You don't need to comment on that.
Also, I'm just gonna say, like, well, fair's fair, right? If fucking Hillisan gets about like 6 splits, he's allowed to in. Mickey just has like fucking 2 and he's just done. All right, fuck off. Anyway, enough of that. Right, what do you think of Labrov and the G2 bot lane? Opposite, what do you think of it? You played against it.
I think their laning ability is like top level in EU. I think they play the matchups fine, or like good even. I think they have some pretty specific strengths overall. I think like Hans on strong laning champs is where he gets the most out of it, I would say. Personally, like from playing against him. I think when it comes to like just straight up team fighting, I think he's good, but I think he's like I said, I think his main strength is the early game and then pressuring the map, creating an advantage like that. I think he's not the player that like, okay, he's behind, but he's probably gonna have like a really great teamfight moment or something like maybe more like Kalist to some degree has like a little bit more X factor, I would say, when it comes to team fighting, where like he can have like a big moment. I think Hans is a little bit less like that, so I would say they're like in EU they're definitely a good bot lane, but we're talking about MSI here, right? And I think the laning power is not something that other bot lanes will be scared against at all. I think Draven obviously being in the meta is always a really good thing for him. Even though it's the Asian teams, it's also harder to pull that off when the map is balanced or like even pressured on your side and you're playing the Draven. It's a completely different story than when your team is winning and you get to pick up a kill at some point, right? So yeah, I think there will be there will be a fine bot lane at the tournament. Like I don't think laning phase will be the issue, but I think other bot lanes will probably just bring more to the table in terms of team fighting, maybe proactive plays of the support, maybe not that Hans doesn't play a lot of champs, but like when it comes to the pure like more team fighting champs that are looking to scale more, like his Kaiser's good, but it's not like Elk, or like Ruler, I would say. And I think the strengths are just not quite there. But like I said, in EU, they're definitely a very good bot lane.
I mean, that's actually why I'm a bit worried for G2. It's why I led with MCoy, because first of all, it is rookie season for Skewmon. So I said this with Kalista when he went to Last Stand. If he'd have somehow flunked the tournament, I wouldn't just be like, throw him in the bin. Like, spoiler, people like Perks did that, mate. Like, it's happened before. Like, it's really hard to go. It tends to only be the Asia ones that just go and like smurf in their first ever year. Like, that's really tough. And so when you add in the Skewmon factor, well, the problem is, I actually think their bot lane is badly suited for this meta. Because think about it, right? Every fucking Hansama team is like, let's win the lane. Let's be like ahead early in the game. They didn't even do that this year. And then even then, this is the problem, Yamato. There might be elements of that upper bracket run you liked, but that upper bracket included the series against Fnatic, and G2 was definitely not ahead in those fucking games. They were constantly behind. Like, the joke is, that's why if you are in Fnatic, like, look, if G2 had won, maybe you say they were better, but since they didn't win, it's like, fuck, we did beat ourselves. What we did is, it's like I say on the street, we threw it and you were able to catch it. There you go. We were
I mean, but at this point, it's like, we're kind of like a pitcher,
Okay.
We're not just showing. It's like when you show this much, like probably the enemy team is better if you like just lose. Like
sure,
being able to show this consistently is like a very clear flaw, So
no, you don't have to convince me that Fnatic loses. Yeah. Listen, I've seen it.
Yeah.
I bet on it. I've put my fucking reputation on the line with it, motherfucker. So you
stop doing that. Like I can see your scrims go before you guys hype us up. Like
okay.
A bit too risky, I think.
Anyway, on the other part of the bot lane. Go on. Yeah, sure. No, listen, always next split. Listen, Fnatic are the Arsenal of fucking Fnatic. Or then, like, the joke is like Netflix, isn't it? There's always another season. So anyway, see you next split. See you in the summer. Also, who cares? Winter and spring. They don't even qualify in the World Cup. It's like fucking qualifying some shit. We're going for the big one, motherfucker. You can have the warm-up act. The other problem you do have, you've just nailed it there, is, bro, there's a world where Labrov could have 2 titles right now. And I don't think he was even top 2 at his position. Like, this move's been not only like questionable for G2, it's been questionable for him. It's actually like exposed him a bit in a way it didn't when he was in BDS. And you look at it like, mate, you can't be doing like, yes, but if he gets his blitzcrank Thorin, this isn't like 2013, mate. Like, and it's fearless. You get it once. And spoiler, I would fucking love it if like Carrier or something just picks it in like a game 1 against them or something, and then you don't even get to play it. That would fucking make me laugh. So the problem with Labrov is this: he's good for LEC level. I don't think he's actually sure he was elite this year. And then when he goes international, it's got a lot of problems. So listen, get your thinking cap on right now, Yamato, and listen to what I have to say about Labrov. The problem is the way he's played so far. I think he's set quite a low bar, and I think when he goes to MSI, it's going to be really hard work. It's going to be a lot of labor. And you know what? If somehow he's able to pull it off, I'll say bravo. But I reckon in the end, he's going to have a lot of courage in the face of what's going to be a very daunting battle. But that's enough of my Valor rant. Those were all acronyms of Lavrov, because the thing about Lavrov is he's all mixed up, and he's a mess. So I did that. It's actually our word game show where we're getting, it's like sort of like countdown or something. We're getting fucking crazy. Listen, every segment can't be the same. I'm trying to make them all unique in their own way. See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or be a pleb and don't.